Those that are calling in, make sure to state your name and address before you speak. And we're going to buckle up and try to get through this. So far, I think there's 3 on there. So if you would all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance for the City Council meeting number 7, April 6, 2020. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You want to go ahead, Jim, before the roll call? All right.
Yep. As you get started here tonight, a couple of different statements that are from different emails that we're trying to just make sure that we note with doing meetings a little bit differently. Pursuant to Iowa Code Section 21.8 in the Governor's State of Public Health Emergency Declaration, this meeting is being held electronically because the ongoing public health emergency in the state of Iowa has made it impossible to have a meeting in person. As we've noted, the phone number, I don't happen to have it with me, but for those who did want to participate by phone,
I have it.
you can go ahead and read that.
646-749-3122. The meeting number is 791-645-725.
And that was posted, and it's on the top of our website. We can probably give that in a minute or so again after I finish this next piece and after roll call and stuff, so in case somebody needed to write that down because they wanted to phone in. The other piece that was written here that was just another base type statement to say, which does make sense. We appreciate everyone's patience as we work through this situation with the coronavirus. We're going to do our best to get anyone on the phone who needs to address the council. We have a few people who are on the phone now, so we can continue our democracy during this difficult time. We do encourage everyone to use the call-in number and be patient, and we will get to you. Now, there are portions of our meeting that are designed for public comment, and those are going to create some delays as we try to make sure that we give the opportunity to unmute the phone line so that people can talk during the portions where you typically would take comments from the public on a given agenda item or at the end for comments on items that are not on the agenda. And it'll be kind of rough because you may have more than one voice trying to speak. It's not going to be easy to see who's trying to open their mouth to speak on a phone call. So hopefully this will all work well, and do apologize for this. It looks like this is going to be the process we have this month, though. So if you wanted to repeat that number and the access code again.
Yes, grab a pen. The public access phone number is 646-749-3122. The meeting number is 791-645-725. All right, Kathleen, roll call, please.
Baker,
Here.
Phillips,
Here.
Kreitzer,
I am here.
Graham Murray,
Here.
Marvin.
Here.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Next up is a consent agenda. We did have a email requesting number 3 and 5 be pulled, so those we will do so, but I will read them just in case. The consent agenda is all matters listed under item 1, consent agenda, having been discussed, are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. The 2 items requested to be removed so far is resolution number 3, resolution approving cooperative agreement with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources for using the USFWS Bodie Infrastructure Grant. And number 5, resolution approving the Urban Deer Management Program. Is there anything else that someone would like to have removed? Rich, if you're on the line, if you have something you would like removed from the consent, now is the time to speak up, please. Hearing none. Council? Okay, good. Yep.
Can we see if we can hear anybody?
Oh, could we hear, if you're online for the meeting, would you speak up and acknowledge so we know we're hearing you?
Yes, push up the 28 Madison Avenue, and you remove number 3 and 5, which I asked.
Yes, okay. All right, so we can't hear him, Rich. So we're going to proceed unless there's somebody else, something else someone removed. Okay. Bill?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Kathleen, please.
Rinker,
Aye.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Aye.
Graham Murray,
Aye.
Mopin.
Aye.
Okay, next is hearings. Hearing number 1, statement for consideration of sale of property locally known as 1021 North 8th Street, Burlington, Iowa, with conditions. And that would be Mr. Tislin. There he is over there on the left side.
This is a property the city acquired, had a failure in the wall. It was demolished and sent out notice to adjacent property owners within 200 feet. Did receive one bid from a property owner to the north to acquire the property. Part of the condition is that someone either acquire it adjacently and combine it with their existing lot, or someone acquire it to construct a new home on the lot, so that it's not a property in the middle of the neighborhood where someone in that neighborhood doesn't have some interest in it. But Joel and Della Anna Tiemeyer have put a bid in of $500. They're at 1031 North 8th to acquire the property and combine it with their adjacent lot. We haven't received any other notice from anyone else or interest.
So it's recommended we accept the bid?
Yes, staff
Okay.
would recommend that.
Is there any thoughts or concerns from the audience? Hearing none. Council?
Nope.
Can I get a motion?
Motion to close.
Second.
Ready when you are, Kathleen.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray,
Yes.
Mopin.
Yes.
Can I get a resolution, please, Bill?
Yes. A resolution approving the sale of property locally known as 1021 North 8th Street, City of Burlington, Iowa, with conditions.
Second.
When you're ready, Kathleen.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray,
Yes.
Mopin.
Yes.
All right.
Also, someone on the phone is sitting too close to however they're viewing it, that's what we're getting.
Rich is working on it. Sorry about the feedback, folks. We're working on
You could do
it.
your favorite Harry Carey right now. It'd be
Yeah.
great, too.
Okay.
That echo.
All right, I think we got it. Thank you, Rich, for your hard work there. Number 2 is consideration for a sale of property locally known as 704 South Central, Burlington, Iowa, with conditions.
This is a property we
Mr. Tislin.
You need a
acquired.
second? Or
No.
Okay.
Mr.
We
Tislin.
acquired through the abandoned building program, 657A, and demolished it. Again, located at 704 South Central, just south of Spruce Street. Did receive notice or interest from the neighbor to the north, Laura McGinty, at 700 South Central Avenue to acquire the lot. She did put a bid in of $500 to acquire and combine with her existing lot there at 700 South Central Avenue. Did, again, send notice to everyone within 200 feet of the property and haven't received any other interest, so we'd recommend selling to that individual.
Very good. Is there any concerns from the audience? Council, any questions? Can I get a motion?
Motion to close.
Second.
When you're ready, Kathleen.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray,
Absolutely, yes.
Mopin.
Yes.
Get a resolution?
Resolution approving the sale of a property locally known as 704 South Central Avenue, City of Burlington, Iowa, with conditions.
Second.
When you're ready, Kathleen.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray,
Yes.
Mopin.
Yes.
Okay, passed. Number 3, consideration of property disposition with merge. Is that you, Jim?
I suppose.
All right, this is following up on several other pieces that we have done with this puzzle of dealing with the former police department building. Did begin as we moved from, the police department moved from their former site to their new location. The former site needed to be addressed in some way. And we had originally looked at doing a demolition on that, cost of about $500,000. We did go through the process of looking for alternative routes to do something with. Merge came forward with the proposal to purchase this lot from us along with the adjacent lot building. Asked for $450,000 towards the demolition and a 10-year TIF rebate, 100% of taxable TIF value, which is about 80% or so of the taxes that they would pay over the course of those 10 years. What their proposal was to do is to demolish the buildings and construct a new building on there with 56,000 square foot of space, 5 floors, 67 residential units, about 4,600 of leasable commercial space on the main level. They've also agreed to go into a minimum assessment agreement on the property for $5 million. Part of the process is in that agreement, they also asked that the lot be, or building be given to them for $0. So the sale price on the land would be $0 as part of the overall package for this development. That's kind of what I have for what the background is on it.
All right.
There are still some contingencies that they're working on before closure, but I know they also are wanting to have some conversations with us at the end of the week to start talking about, was it demolition plans? So, with that, I would say you should open it up for public comment. And as we do the public comments, give Rich time to
Okay.
open the phone and allow for some delay in there.
I'll ask and see if anybody has any concerns specifically. All right, Rich, you ready? So we're going to open that up for any thoughts or concerns from the audience.
I just have excuse me.
Please give your name.
Chris Repke, 2228 Madison Avenue, Burlington.
Okay.
Just a question. We're entering into this time with the coronavirus and finances are really, who knows what's gonna be happening. If MERS doesn't complete the project in an amount of time and doesn't do anything, does the city get the property back? That's just my question. Because you're giving them $450,000 to help tear it down.
That was set up in that, wasn't it? Yeah,
Go ahead,
it is,
Jim.
it is set up in that. And the biggest part that we're concerned about really is if they get the first part done. We don't turn any money over to them until they do a demolition of the structure. And so that's on a reimbursement basis. They have to do that to complete the beginning part of to really complete the purchase. Beyond that, if they were to get that done, I think that we don't have really a right of reversion after that back to us if they don't do the development. But they have a time frame that they have to hit to from the time of acquisition to the time demolishing and starting construction, or there is a reversion process on it.
And we're not, because they're going to demolish the PD building, so
It was what
we were
we
looking
were-
at 500,000, right?
Yeah, it's less than what we were looking to spend.
Right.
We're
It would
gonna
not be
in
where
any
we,
worse shape.
what's that?
We won't be in any worse shape.
Not financially, but it wouldn't be what our ideal solution would be,
Right.
but it's still part of where we're looking to end up at.
Does that answer your question, Chris?
A little bit, but I mean, I'd like to see something there if they don't, if they don't complete it. And you don't want the property to sit there 5, 6 years. I'd like, the city to get it back to see if they can find another redeveloper. The city is given $450,000, which is less than the plan, and yes, it includes the other 2 buildings. But I'd like to see something so that it could be redeveloped. It's the financial times, and that's the only reason I'm asking.
Okay. Is there anyone else? Jim, did you want to address that or no?
I didn't even
No.
hear what he said.
He said that was the reason. He would just like to see some revision process on that.
I understand that.
Understand.
I think that once we get beyond the point of a demolition, though, we're kind of putting it in their hands. They
Yeah.
don't get any rebates, but,
And they have been vetted. I mean, they've completed
Yep.
their other projects in other towns.
yep, they've done multiple projects.
Okay.
and
There's
are-
been no other interest in the property, right? So.
No.
Okay. Are there any other thoughts or concerns from anyone online in the audience? No. Council?
No, I just thought
Matt?
I'd point out, even though they're asking for TIF, which I would support giving them, they're still gonna pay us about $280,000 in property tax revenue over the next 10 years.
Yeah. And then a lot more after that.
Yeah.
Anybody else on council? No? Can I get a motion?
Your Honor, I have a motion to close.
Second.
When you are ready, Kathleen.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes, please.
Graham Murray,
Yes.
Moffitt.
Yes.
Resolution.
Your Honor, I have a resolution authorizing the sale of city-owned property.
Second?
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray,
Yes.
Moffitt.
Yes.
I was waiting for you to get done writing before I asked you this time, Kathleen, sorry. Number 4 is consideration of an ordinance amending chapter 163A.07 of the Burlington, Iowa Code of Ordinances concerning the hearing rights in the case of junk vehicles. Mr. Tisland.
So this section of code 163A07, or 163A junk vehicles, was added to the city code a couple of years ago, just to clarify, I guess, how we handle junk vehicles. It was previously just under the environmental nuisance section of code, which is 163. As part of starting to enforce this, the question came up in chapter 163. We have a request for hearing, a due process laid out within that section of code. It wasn't explicitly clear in 163A what our requirements were, or what the ability of a person, I guess, affected by this code, how they could appeal. So we just wanted to make it clear that if they are affected by this code, they have notice to a right of hearing as outlined in chapter 163.11 of the city code. So no other sections were changed within this code. It still is enforced as is. We're not changing anything other than making it clear that they have right to appeal if they feel that they want to go that route.
Okay, are there any thoughts or concerns from the folks online?
I'm speaking too much. Chris Rumpke, 2228 Madison. Just, does the code require now that the car be running? Do they just have to license it and then it's not junk, or does that be licensed and runnable or movable?
Under the junk vehicle definition, it has to have plates and stickers for current registration. Under the inoperable or obsolete, it does have to be capable of moving on its own, so it does have to run. We're not gonna run it down the freeway, but it does have to run on its own.
Okay, any other thoughts or concerns from folks online? All right, hearing none, council?
Chris beat me to it.
Okay, can I get a motion?
Your Honor, I have a motion to close.
Second.
Kathleen?
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray,
Yes.
Moffitt.
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a motion for the preliminary adoption of the first reading of the ordinance amending Chapter 163A.07 of the Burlington, Iowa Code of Ordinances concerning the hearing rights in the case of junk vehicles.
Second.
Kathleen, when you're ready?
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray,
Yes.
Moffitt.
Yes.
Okay, before we move on to number 5, I'm going to call a little point of order on myself. I realize that I did not read the consent agenda. I just pulled read the ones that we were pulling. So I'm going to read that real quick, Nick, all right? On the consent agenda are the finances and miscellaneous, meaning minutes and minutes of previous meetings, payroll and city claims, beer, liquor, wine, and cigarette permits, reports and bonds, resolutions. Number 1, resolution approving the intergovernmental transfer of public funds agreement between the Iowa Department of Human Services and the City of Burlington. Number 2, resolution approving the purchase of temporary construction easements for the 2019 Lewis Street Sewer Project. Number 4, resolution approving the contract services for Southeast Iowa Regional Planning Commission for administration and technical services associated with the TAMA 2 project at 300 to 310 Jefferson Street. Number 6, resolution amending the septic hauler fees effective July 1st, 2020. Number 7, a resolution establishing the solid waste fees effective July 1st, 2020. Number 8, resolution approving the purchase of a telescopic boom lift for the wastewater treatment facility. And appointments, PT.
Yes, we have 4 appointments. For City Planning Commission, we have Brian Bross. For Low Rent Housing Agency, Richard Mellinger. For the Parks Advisory Committee, J. Brian Schulte. And for the Tree Advisory Board, Lisa Lauk, Joyce Tager, and Kelly Rundell.
Okay. Richard, unmute it for a second. Is there any thoughts or concerns on the consent from the audience online? Any thoughts or concerns on the consent from the audience online? Hearing none. Council? Okay, I do need a motion to approve that once, we already approved it, right?
voted on it.
So we don't need to approve it again. I just want to make sure to get it read in the record. Sorry about that, I skipped that. Okay. Back to hearings. We're on number 5. Considerations of plans and specifications for the 2020 Senior Center Roof Replacement Project. Nick, please.
Good evening. The project in front of you is for the senior center located on Jefferson Street. In the overhead projection, I have an image of what that roof replacement looks like. As I kind of stated in the work session, it's larger than just the frontage on Jefferson Street. It actually wraps around to the alleyway. This roof replacement will be a TPO. It's a rubber roof membrane with no ballast. So similar to what we did when we replaced the Public Works building, same materials. We did asbestos testing and didn't find any, so we should be in the clear there. We have it estimated about a $78,000 project that's in the budget, using sales tax monies to fund the project.
Why is it different colored up there? Why is the one white?
Just different roof types when they did
Okay.
It's a gravel now?
it. No, there is no gravel. There's no ballast.
Oh, okay.
It's a black rubber roof right now.
Okay.
And then it has the poly overlay, the white.
On the one section, there is, I don't know what the material is right now, but it will all be white TPO rubber roof.
Okay. Thank you, Nick. Any thoughts or concerns from the audience? Hang on, we're unmuting you. Give us a second. Any thoughts or concerns from the audience on the senior roof replacement?
There's only one call.
Okay. Hearing none. Council, any questions? Can I get a motion?
Motion to close?
Second?
When you are ready, Kathleen.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray,
Aye.
Moffitt.
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution approving plans and specifications for the 2020 Senior Center Roof Replacement Project.
Second?
When you are ready, Kathleen.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray,
Aye.
Moffitt.
Yes.
Okay, number 6, considerations of plans and specifications for the 2020 West Avenue and Gear Avenue Dal Bar retrofit project. Nick.
So this project, the plans and specifications in front of you include a Dalbar retrofit project on West Avenue and then Gear Avenue. It's actually going to be a combined project. You'll see a memorandum of understanding come in next week with West Burlington. And the image in front of you is a map of what the project will entail. The yellow or gold color is the portion that we will be responsible for Burlington. And then West Burlington will do the remaining from their city boundaries up to Division Street. So the Dalbar retrofit, if you could go to the next page. This is a SUDAS typical section of what a Dalbar retrofit is. We go in there in the wheel paths and cut out a section of the concrete and replace and put in new Dalbars, and then pave over top of them. And then it will be finished off with a diamond grinding. I think about 1/4 of an inch or so is taken off. This project will hopefully lengthen the duration of life for the concrete right now in its current status, kind of with the rocking of the panels. We worry about further cracking. And so there are some that have cracked, not necessarily from that, but other longitudinal cracks, and so we'll replace some of those with this project. The estimate for this project, which includes the portion for West Burlington, is $603,000. Their portion of it is $166,000, and that includes, that doesn't include the engineering. I haven't broke that up in this figure, but they will split their portion of engineering. So our staff will do the engineering on this project, and then it'll get billed out to them. So we roughly have 2/3 of the project cost of $362,000 for an estimate. So.
Okay, it's always good to see Burlington, West Burlington work together. Is there any thoughts or concerns from the audience on the retrofit project? Any thoughts or concerns from the audience? No. Okay, council, thoughts or concerns?
Is this what they're doing right now in Roosevelt?
No, they're just doing patchwork on Roosevelt.
Oh, okay.
They're just simply going in full depth patching some of their concrete section.
Any other thoughts or concerns?
Just if we get this fixed, will we ever get to hear Nick say hippity skippity anymore?
Oh, it'll come.
I hope not.
It only gets better.
All right, any other thoughts? Can I get a motion to close?
Yeah, Your Honor, I have a motion to close.
Second.
Kathleen, when you're ready.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray,
Aye.
Mopin.
Yes.
All right. Your Honor, I have a resolution approving plans and specifications for the 2020 West Avenue and Deer Avenue Dalbar retrofit project.
Second.
Second.
Second. When you're ready.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Absolutely.
Graham Murray,
Aye.
Mopin.
Yes.
Okay, number 7, a statement consideration of plans and specifications for the 2020 Virginia Avenue Sycamore Street stormwater improvements. Nick?
The plans and specifications up for this one project actually includes 2 different locations of issues that are of a similar nature, and so that's why we're lumping the 2 projects together. Klingner and Associates did the engineering for us on this project. So I have the 2 red dots on the map, kind of the north side of town. Just off of Sycamore, we have an existing storm sewer line that goes over the bluff that has some sort of complication and is causing some erosion along the hillside there. And then further north up on Virginia, there really wasn't any storm sewer ever created up there. It's just simply jumped the curb and kind of went over the hillside, and it's causing problems for the hillside itself and then the property owner to the south on the bottom side of the hill. So these projects will repair some of the erosion, but also install new or replace existing storm sewer infrastructure and carry the water through that. I have a couple other images. They're kind of hard to see. This is the Sycamore project. You can kind of detail you can see the contours are pretty steep. You can see the hillside, and then the grayed area is the storm sewer section that we're replacing. So it doesn't give you a lot of detail unless you're kind of an engineer and understand what this project means. But so this is I switched them. Yeah, that's Virginia, isn't it? Shows you this. They're very similar in nature. Taking water over the hillside and trying to deal with it. So, and we're using our miscellaneous or mainline sewer repair funds, the same funds that we've used to, unfortunately, have to fix a lot of other complicated projects like the hole down in the Hawkeye sewer,
Okay.
and things like that.
All right, is there anyone on the online that has a question or concern? Hearing none. Council, anybody have any thoughts or concerns? No? Can I get a motion, please?
All right, Your Honor, I have a motion to close.
Second.
When you're ready, Kathleen.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Fairmurray,
Yes.
Moffitt.
Yes.
All right, Your Honor, I have a resolution approving plans and specifications for the 2020 Virginia Avenue and Sycamore Street stormwater improvements.
Second.
Kathleen?
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Fairmurray,
Aye.
Moffitt.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to resolutions.
Your Honor, I have a resolution providing for the sale and issuance of 5,660,000 general obligation refunding bond series 2020 alpha and for the levy of taxes to pay the same.
Okay, so this,
Second.
So we're gonna have to get Travis on.
Yeah,
Take just a minute,
It
folks.
might take a, cause this echo again. But Travis should be able to hear us, and we should be able to hear him.
Hey, Travis.
Hello. Hey.
Travis, we're on resolution number one. The sale of an issuance of 5,660,000 general obligation refunding bond series 2020A. And the levy of taxes to pay the same, if you would address it, please.
Yeah, sure.
Can you mute yours?
So I put together a presentation component that I'll move through relatively quickly. And thanks for having me in these different circumstances from being directly in front of you presenting. So today was the day that we were wrapping up the rest of the city's capital financing for the year, having completed current year financings already. As a quick overview, the 2020A refinancing, which produced interest cost savings, net of fees of $268,000 for the city. The Series B, an additional $63,000 of savings for the city. And then moving in today, the 2020C, which is for your new capital projects. We had 4 bank proposals presented today. A little bit different than the process that we had started on with the 2020 A's and B's, where we have historically underwritten the city's bonds, sold to investors. We saw a lot of market disruption over the last couple weeks. So we went to what we'd call kind of a direct lending or bank placement process, which produced very good results for the refinancings. And then also produced a great result today with Key Government Finance presenting a 2.3% rate for the city today. I wanted to throw a couple of slides out there that just give a little bit of the market volatility disruption. And, some of this is, probably interesting to you. Some of it may not be. But what this is tracking is what we call the kind of the 30-year Treasury and the 30-year MMD or municipal market data line, which is supposed to be a pretty good proxy to the bond markets. And as you see, those numbers track each other quite well historically, bottoming out here in 2020. And then you see this jolt of a spike in the 30-year MMD, the orange line, which ultimately is some of the market disruption that we've seen. And this is primarily due to the COVID-19 situation that's going on in the market right now.
Travis.
One thing that I'll add on that's driving that is that there's been
Travis.
Massive amounts of fund flows out of the market.
Hey, Travis.
And part of the issue we've been working with. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Jim's got
Just a question, did you share a screen with us?
It should be sharing. I did I have a screen sharing right now.
We can see your slides. There you go.
There you go.
There we go.
Perfect.
Ready to back up? Okay, so again, all of I'm trying to communicate here is that we've dealt with some market disruption, which has led to some of the changes in kind of method of financing for the city. Overall, though, we were able to bring rates in approximately where we had expected. The only one that was a little bit different was the taxable refinancing on the 2020B. The taxable market is a lot more difficult right now, but overall still produce savings for the city on the refinancing. One of probably the most remarkable things that we've seen in the market is, if you look at this slide in front of you, it represents the municipal market's fund flows, and over the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks approximately, $24 billion of outflows have occurred in the market, which is unprecedented. If you kind of look at the prior weeks and the magnitude of this, and really what that says is a lot of people are just sitting on cash and safety, so the markets are a little disrupted, which is why we went to a direct lending route for the current financing. So the next slide does represent your new capital. There's a debt levy portion and a TIF portion on your project that fund your street improvement projects as well as the flood protection component, flood wall component. 2020C will be sized at 5.71 million total principal, with a little bit over $1 million in total interest cost at a rate of 2.3%. The rest of the slides in this packet are more for reference. I don't intend to spend a ton of time dwelling on them, but these are just references of the overall new financial position of the city after issuing the debt. Also kind of a flow through on the future planning that we shared in our February meeting. Nothing really has changed on this model. We were able to actually bring in rates a little bit lower than what were modeled. So nothing has been disrupted in terms of your financial plan, but we'll obviously have to continue to monitor a couple important things that will likely be the leaders of the disruption. And we see that as being local option sales tax as being one of the things that are hit the hardest. So the city will need to do some prudent planning to make certain that resources continue to be available for all the things that you use your local option sales tax dollars for. I guess that in summary, you know, we've navigated through a difficult financial market. We certainly appreciate flexibility the city has shown, especially at the last meeting where we had to pivot at the last minute and to do a slightly different process of awarding bank loans, and then sticking with us through this process and getting your financing taken care of through the market disruption. I guess at this time I'll turn it over if there's any questions from council members, or Jim, Stephanie, if you want to add anything additional.
Jim?
I hate the feedback that's going to go on this, but what are you looking at for statewide reduction in local option sales tax for next year?
I wish I had a good crystal ball for that. We had heard through February that most of the leading indicators within the state's budget had indicated that it looked like sales tax revenues had trended ahead of schedule for the first half of the year on a statewide number. Now the local option numbers, I did not hear any specific information for Des Moines County, but statewide we had heard that numbers were trending well. Keep in mind the change in the way sales tax is collected with online sales tax. We're taking their first full year of impact. As we move through the rest of this fourth quarter, I do know that the Department of Revenue is reviewing where they see expectations coming in. The hard part for them is that these numbers do lag in terms of reporting and payment. So it's likely to be reflected in fiscal 21 collections, which is where the city should be careful in their spending and planning and identify places where they can perhaps make some adjustments or cover with some other resources of things that you were planning on with your local option sales tax. I know that some of those costs with local option sales tax are more directly related to operational costs. Obviously going to be hard to make adjustments mid-year operationally. But as you look at some of your one-time capital things that you might have had slated out of local option sales tax, you might start identifying items that could potentially be shifted into your capital funding plan in the spring of 2021 to kind of backstop. Could be a shorter year on sales tax revenues. I think we'll know a lot more over the next couple months, but we've not heard anything official come out from the state. You know, if you think of what if sales tax revenues are down 30 or 40% in this quarter alone, well, if you extrapolate that, then over 4 quarters, you might see total sales tax revenues down 10%, which obviously is a big number, but when you consider the disruption, it's really going to come back to you know, is there pent out demand for spending and purchasing things when we get through this? How long are we in a statewide shutdown? When our business is going to be back opening? And I think if anybody has that crystal ball, I'd appreciate the knowledge of that. So does that help, Jim?
I was just kind of wondering what you're kind of giving for advice to, like, you have a lot of school clients. What are you saying that they should be relying on for a budget for next year? 5% less than the current year?
Yeah, so right now, the main thing that we're telling schools is that a lot of them have debt payments coming up in July of this year. So we are telling them to try to fund their sinking fund amounts, meaning they set aside 1/12 of their payments on a monthly basis, to go ahead and get those funded now out of fund balance. Be cautious in thinking that there could be a month where your spending is down. 5% of the sales tax revenues are distributed in what's commonly called a retainage payment at the end of the year. So you get that in November. So that 5% retainage payment going into next year, I would assume it's all but gone. It just seems that there's probably at least a 5% reduction in fiscal 20. As we look into fiscal 21, you know, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that the state will take a cautious approach, and you might see revenue estimates down upwards of 10%. But it's really anybody's guess until we start seeing some hard numbers from this after this month is out. Hopefully by the end of April, we'll start to get a better picture of what that might look like going forward. But certainly we're telling people to be cautious. For those that do have debt outstanding that is secured by the local option sales tax, make certain that they're making the appropriate adjustments to their expectations.
That's kind of what I wanted to get from you on that. We, as we approach next year's budget, we're probably the 200,000 less on the 5% makeup, and then our 4 million annual that we typically get spread over 12 months, another 10% reduction on that. So we might be 600,000 lower next year. Does that seem like a good number to have?
Yeah, I think that's a good starting point as you work through more what I call a prioritized spending list of, you know, if we're down 600,000, these are the things that make the cut. If we get an additional 200,000, here's where we might spend that. If we get a 200,000 on top of that, we might spend that amount here. You know, certainly, you know, you have a little bit of fund balance on hand, which is helpful. but at the same time, you won't be able to operate kind of business as usual until you get the new estimate that will be released mid-August from the Department of Revenue.
Okay, thank you, Travis. I think that answered that. Is there any thoughts or concerns from the audience for Travis? We can't hear you. Try it again, sir. How many callers are on there, Rich? Just the one?
Yeah, you can try to.
Hang on, we're trying to get to you.
If you want to have Eric type in the chat or Jim type in the chat on the site, I can read the question there.
Okay, if you're online there, do you have a thought or concern for Travis? I just heard him, so I'm going to go with no. Council, any questions for Travis?
No.
We pretty well discussed this in work session. No, I think we're good, Travis. Thank you very much for your guidance.
Yeah, thank you. If there's questions as we continue to work through modeling, we'll review those with the council, and hopefully we can kick this thing as a state as soon as possible.
Thank you. Okay, so we're ready for resolution votes on all. We'll do one at a time, okay?
Yes, this is A.
This is A, 2020 please.
Richter,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Murray,
Aye.
Moffitt.
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution providing for the sale and issuance of 4,230,000 taxable general obligation refunding bond series 2020B for the levy of taxes to pay the same.
Kathleen?
Second.
Second, sorry. Linda got it. Thank you, Linda.
And as you went through these two separate ones, these first two, the one that you voted on already was refinancing on several bond issues that were tax exempt. This one is the refinancing on 2 or 3 bond issues from about the same time period, the 2013 to 2015 was when we issued them. These are taxable debts. We refinance for savings. Total savings between the two issues was a total of $300,000. And we did not extend payments. This is all being repaid on the same schedule that the original bonds were.
Jim, real quick, would you just explain the difference between a GO and a taxable?
GO, general obligation debt. So both of them all of these are general obligation debts, meaning the general obligation debt essentially means that the full faith and credit of the city backs these debts. Taxable versus tax exempt has to do more with, we're allowed to do bank qualified financings up to $10 million a year that meet a tax exempt standard. They were for an essential corporate purpose. If we go over that 10 million in a given year, that's a taxable one, and that has more to do with what the investor is looking at, not us as a city. We don't get caught up in that taxable versus tax exempt, but it changes the dynamics of for an investor how they're going to show that on their income taxes and what they're going to be able to what they're going to be taxed on versus able to write off. The ones that tax exempt, we're able to get at a lower financing rate because they're not paying income taxes on it. So as we're talking about it, they're all GO bonds.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. Any other questions on this one?
This is gonna be paid off in 2031, is that what I'm saying?
Some of that debt was probably out to then, yes.
Okay, just a question, so like, as this principal amount drops off towards the end, when we get to those last couple of years and it dropped off to the point where, like, making a double payment would end it, is that smart on our end to pay it off and be done with it?
Some of them don't, I think this one does not allow a prepayment on it. One of the two issues, I can't remember which one does. We'll do that if you can do it for savings.
Okay.
But, I mean, when you think about it, we have layered debt, meaning we go out and we issue new debt every year, essentially, almost every year. So as we're not likely to be in a spot in 2030 or 2031 where we don't have a debt schedule that has something that's gonna use up pretty much all the dollars.
Well, I'm being really optimistic, Jim.
Well, good.
Thank you.
All right, any other thoughts or concerns? Kathleen, when you're ready, please.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray,
Aye.
Moffitt.
Yes.
Okay,
Your Honor, I have a resolution approving, I'm sorry, I'll start over. Your Honor, I have a resolution authorizing the approval of proposal for sale of general obligation corporate bonds, purpose bond, Series 2020C.
Need a second.
Second.
Jim?
And this is new money that we're doing for the flood wall and then street projects. The one that we talked about, the Dow retrofit to take care of the hippity-skippity, as well as Central Avenue asphalt overlay. The bond placement costs Travis went through, it came in at a 2.3%. This is a private placement. We had a few different places that were interested in purchasing, but again, this is a private placement, different than what we've done in previous years, and it has to do with really the bond market is just in turmoil this last month. But it still came in at a rate that was within what we were anticipating. It's just we're doing the financing directly with a bank, a little bit different than what we've done in the past.
Any questions for Jim? Any questions from the audience for Jim? You have them on, do you get them? Now, any questions on the 2020C for Jim from online? No? Okay, Kathleen, when you're ready.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray,
Yes.
Moffitt.
Yes.
Number 4.
Your Honor, I have a resolution rejecting all bids for the 2020 Dank Park Tennis Court Resurfacing Project.
Second.
Now,
Mr. Tisland.
real quick, do I need to read the?
Not
Okay.
yet.
So we went out for bid and received one bid for the resurfacing project at Dankworth Park Tennis Courts from All Weather Courts of Dawson, Illinois, of $182,100. We have $105,000 from Starker Funds budget for this. Remaining funds were to be determined. The local tennis association is working on efforts to raise funds to, I guess, minimize that gap quite a bit. So they're still working through that process. We'd recommend continuing this to the next meeting to see where they're at that point and see if we can move forward with it. It's been a project that's been outstanding for a while, and we'd like to address it if we're able to and if we're able to raise those funds. So we'd recommend continuing to the next meeting.
Okay, and I did talk to Mr. Japsoon, who's heading that project up. They are waiting on a couple things, their 5013C, but he is very close on pledges, so I would say this would be a wise thing to continue it on. It would be nice to get it done if we
Yeah.
can get some assistance from him.
I think he's raised over $76,000, and he's received, last time I talked to him, he was receiving more than half of that at that point. So.
Very good.
So that's what.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
So Kathleen, just let me clarify, so do we have discussion now, or then we go for postponing it?
Well, he just kind of already discussed it,
Okay.
so, Matt can.
So I
introduce
can
them.
read this. So, to continue the resolution rejecting all bids for the 2020 Dankworth Park Tennis Court Resurfacing Project to the April 2020 City Council meeting.
Need a second?
Second.
Do you want to ask for public comment?
Oh, okay, yes, thanks. Is there any, do you have it unmuted, Rich? Thanks.
Or pledges, right?
Is there any thoughts or concerns on this rejecting the tennis court resurfacing project bids? Anyone? Okay, I think we're good. Kathleen, please.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray,
Aye.
Moffitt.
Yes.
Very quickly, if there's someone out there that's listening in that wants to put money towards the tennis court, Matt, do you have any information on how they reach out to them, or is there a way to get a hold of them?
Yeah, if they, probably easiest way to do
Get
it
a hold
without
of-
me giving Brian's information out is just, go to the, City of Burlington, website. You can email a city council member and we will put you in contact with the right person.
Sounds good. Okay, now we're moving on to the items that were pulled from the consent. Number 3, resolution approving cooperative agreement with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources for the U.S. FWS Boating Infrastructure Grant.
I need a second.
Second.
Who wants to, unmute, please, Rich, yeah. Do you want to go first, Jim?
Is Chris on the phone still or no?
Yeah, I'm still here.
You want to address the council with what your concerns were? They did get a copy of your letter, so they've had a chance to see that.
Oh. Okay, yes, I will. This is Chris Repke, 2228 Madison Avenue. I have a bunch of questions on this, and, you know, I've spoken about this before the council. I'm not in favor of it. I think more money should be spent on other projects. I believe Cascade Bridge is more important than the boat docks down on the riverfront. My couple questions: from where does the city draw its $125,000 contribution? I got more questions, but let's ask that one first. From where does that $125,000 come to go into the agreement with the Iowa DNR, if I remember correct?
Yeah, we had originally budgeted $100,000 out of hotel motel in the current year's budget. This is $25,000 higher than what we had budgeted. And to your concern, this is one of my major concerns on the project, Chris. The hotel motel tax is going to lose at least 2 months worth of revenues, and then it coming back is a major concern, how quickly it comes back. If I model just the 2 months lost and about a 10% reduction in next year's, actually I think what I had modeled even was less of a reduction than that. We still have a positive cash balance at the end of next year, but if I take out the commitments that we have that are towards riverfront specifically and auditorium specifically, some of the other set accounts within hotel motel tax, the flexible money in hotel motel is actually negative next year if we try to do all the projects that are in line. So.
Okay. Let's say if you do this, you know, you pass this, you do the $125,000. Does the city have to rebate any money to the Iowa DNR because of their contribution, because you don't go forward with the project?
If we did not go forward with the project, if we go and start this part of it, gets very complicated, not just because of this specific project, but also Tiger. They have to work together, and if we start this and don't continue it, we put ourselves in a potential world of hurt down the road. We have to be committed to moving forward with doing the project. Wait.
If you don't do it, if you don't pass this
Do you have better
today,
words on that?
does it hurt the Tiger grant?
Well, wait, yeah, Nick probably has a better discussion on this because he's worked with the engineers.
So it all comes down to the Tiger grant agreement and the way this would work. If we were to accept it, you could probably get out of it, but that's a process. It takes time to do that. I don't know what that does in terms of construction. If you don't have a working Tiger grant agreement, if you're gonna have to amend it, you may have to halt things until that amendment is completed. So that would be the concern on the timing with the way it works with Tiger grant.
But if we don't accept it, we're not endangering the Tiger grant.
We would have to make an amendment now. We have to do that anyway.
Anyway, okay.
To be able to start the process. So all we've done now is we've agreed to the engineering fees being covered by Tiger Grant to be able to access the other 15 some odd million. We have to amend the Tiger Grant agreement again to adhere to that part of the construction. If we're doing that process and we do that within the idea of doing the boating infrastructure function, that changes things. So I guess we just need to know, one, but two, if we go ahead and approve this, it locks us in with the grant agreement to do that also. So on the back end, if we were to pull
Decide
out
not
of
to,
that,
right.
we would have to go through and amend that Tiger Grant agreement, and then also jump through some hoops with the DOT on how that works with the contracts that we have set up.
We're likely gonna have to do that regardless, though. If we amended it tonight or amended it down the road, at least if we amended it down the road, we'd have a better idea where we sit.
To give you an idea, it took us a year to get the
Yeah.
grant agreement done in the first place. So an amendment that's dissecting out a big portion of work will be complicated.
Doing, out of time frame, if you're doing it at one point or another, it would be easier to do now
Now.
than later.
Okay.
But I think it gets to be practically impossible, and you really do hurt yourself if you go after the engineering study and we move forward with this part, and then we don't do the actual project later on with the funds that come with it. But, I mean, this is really a decision, and I think a lot of the conversation you had last week was pretty pertinent to this. And maybe you want to reiterate what your thoughts are for why you feel it's important to continue to move forward, given the timing of what's going on and what you see this project meaning for the community.
So I have a question about the Tiger Grant. With the way things are going in the world, are we in danger of losing any of that funding, or that's
No.
solid?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I think for continuity, we need to move forward and complete this as we have said we're going to. I think when a community starts to piecemeal projects together, I don't think it bodes very well. I think we need to complete this.
Do we wanna let Chris, Chris, do you have any additional questions?
What is the total cost to the city for this boat dock?
Well, we're gonna have to have plans and specs for that, right?
So, the original grant application that we put in for the project with boating infrastructure grant was like 4.2 million. The estimates of what we have for project moving forward, about 3 million of that was the boating dock. 700,000 or so was the restroom facility that was getting attached to the port, and the rest of it, I think, is mainly in design and then contingencies. But you do come up about 4.3 million. Out of that, the grant is two different pieces. 2,000 on the engineering, 200,000 for engineering on the front that we're looking at now, and then 1.5 million construction is out there as a potential for doing the actual project. A portion of the project costs are covered by Tiger. We have, if everything comes in on the prices the engineering's estimates, we would be in line for the 125,000 now, and then in construction, we'd be in line, responsible for about 700,000. So about 825,000 of the overall project is us.
Yeah.
Okay, so 825,000 is the city's cost. With the way the city is, I think this money would be better spent outside of Burlington. You might say, yeah, this is a nice attraction, but I believe that what you put downtown will not make up for what you lose in the rest of the town, especially the older neighborhoods with declining infrastructure. Because people say, oh yeah, it's nice downtown, but I wouldn't want to live in the neighborhood of Burlington. I think you need to look at that and say no to this. This boating infrastructure I see more as for visitors rather than for the residents. I just have a lot of problems. You have Bluff Harbor Marina. There you have a facility they could use. They can They have the gas, they have the shore power, they have everything needed. I just don't see the return of the citizens' investment and their tax money being spent on this. I'd rather see that go. And with the coronavirus, I'd like to see the city circle the wagons and protect the assets they have right now for a future, which is kind of iffy because the government's spending a whole type of money taking on all kinds of debt, the federal government, and I think we're going to be, you need to circle the wagons so you can keep your services that you have now going, protect them, protect the workforce, protect the current services, rather than something in the future that might or might not be the panacea that we look for.
Chris, I hear what you're saying. This is Robert. It is difficult, and here you got to keep in mind that we had planned on having these Viking River cruises come in. The boat dock would be an attraction, and the way we're going to make money is by bringing people to Burlington as a tourist attraction. And yes, we're going through a difficult time, and I really hope we can bounce back from this virus. But and I love that you really love the old neighborhoods, but I don't think restoring old neighborhoods is what's bringing people to Burlington. They come here for an attraction, they come here for something to do, and driving around looking at the old neighborhoods that have been re-beautified is great, but that's not gonna bring people here or keep them here. So, you know, people are buying old homes and restoring them, but you're gonna bring people to the one thing that we have that other communities in Iowa don't, and that's the Mississippi River. I mean, there's river communities and then there's everybody else, so we can accent on the fact that we have something amazing here, and that we've got this Tiger grant, which was like hitting a half-court shot blindfolded. We've put some money in there, and, you know, to change our focus now when we are on this mission, just, it's I don't know, man. It's hard to say no to this. Like, I'm torn about the money too. Like, I've kind of fought back and forth all week long thinking about this. I'm like, I'd rather save the money and not worry about a dock, but I'm not gonna give up on the downtown or the riverfront either. So I get what you're saying, and then as far as funding goes, you know that every piece of that pie is a different section, so you can't take that money and dump it off somewhere else or put it on the Cascade Bridge. It's marked for what it's marked for, so you have to use it for that or lose it. So we all hear what you're saying, and we appreciate your comments for sure on it, and I feel you on some of this. I wanted to put that out there.
But yeah, don't depend on tourists just to feed your economy. Those who feed the economy is the residents who live here, who pay their property taxes, who send their kids to the school, who shop here, who live here 24/7. If you're depending on the tourist dollars, you're depending on a fickle clientele. One day they're spending, next day they're not spending. You want to, yes, it would be nice, but I think we need to support the residents, the town, the taxpayers. What you're doing downtown is good right now with the Tiger grant, but the boat docks are kind of a nice thing to have. I mean, I'd like to have a new car, but it's not in the budget. And you're talking $800,000 for this, for taxpayers to pay. That adds up in the long run.
Well, we need jobs.
You need to circle the wagons, protect. But how many jobs will this bring? And I look at the Recplex. It said that would make money. It has not made money.
It's not designed to make money.
Let him finish.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead,
Thanks, Chris.
Robert, now you can. Or, now you can. I just,
Sorry.
I don't want you guys running over the top of
Yeah.
each other because
So
it's hard enough.
amenities aren't always designed to make money. They're designed to give the people here something to do. And then you make money elsewhere. You make money in the restaurants and the businesses. So the goal here is to grow Burlington by creating some jobs. And yeah, they're not big money makers if they're small businesses that people are working at. But what we're doing, the downtown is growing. It's the only part of Burlington where we're bringing people in and people are moving there. And we're creating housing, we're creating new business fronts. The thing with the police station, the old police station, they're gonna put some commercial in there. So, yeah, and I understand, but we need some jobs and we need some growth and we need to bring people in, and that's the point I was getting at.
Well, I'll chime in here.
One other,
Go ahead, Chris.
One other comment. Look at you gotta look at history. A lot of cities have done riverfront, lakefront, downtown projects that looked good, were prosperous, but in the meantime, they lost the rest of the city. That's one of my big fears. You're putting all your focus down there, but not seeing what happens. Yeah, you might get some jobs, you might get some restaurant visits, but will it make up for what you lose in the rest of the city? That's the big concern, especially when you're asking the taxpayers to pay 800-something thousand toward boat docks that really are nice, but really not needed. There's other infrastructure projects that are more important than the boat docks for the city. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
I won't say anymore.
You can say as much as you want. Chris, this is John Billups. I am planning on abstaining from this vote because there is a potential conflict because I am employed at the marina, but I would echo some of your concerns. I have some real concerns versus the maintenance of the docks. Right now, our current city docks the mooring poles were shorn off in the ice, and without there being a plan for a jetty of some sort to protect that dock, I'm concerned about that. Also, my experience would be that most boaters are not going to overnight there. The water's deep, the current's the fastest that he is in Burlington is right off those bridge piers. And plus, the close proximities that the barges, which really roll through at night because they don't have to deal with recreational boaters, no one in their right mind is going to spend the night there. They're going to either go to a slough where there's no current and anchor and run off a generator, or they're going to probably go to the marina. It's not a moneymaker for the marina, so I really don't care that way. But I just don't think that the overnight it's going to make a difference. It will during the day, and it would give our citizens a chance to leave their boat unattended, or visitors a chance to leave their boat unattended and go shop. We do have that with the public boat docks, the Mike Schrader docks, now if they get put back in after the roads or the poles are put in. The other concern I have is the safety issue. Iowa law is if you're 13 or younger, you have to wear a vest in a boat. And at the marina, where we have several docks, that's the same rule. Now, I'm not sure how we protect our citizens and their kids from getting on this dock, and because it's meant to be a boardwalk and a great attraction, but how do we protect those kids that maybe doesn't have an intended parent? And, the last thing I'd want to see is a real tragedy down there. But however, saying all that, I do love the way it looks. I think it would be a huge amenity to our city. But right now, with some of the doubts that we have, if it's deemed by our staff, which is Nick and Jim, that it's better to opt out now than later, I would say we need to opt out now. But that's my opinion on that. So,
All right.
Bill,
Looking at this, I look at this as a want, not a need. And with what is going on right now in the world, in the markets, I think we would be better served to say no to this now than put $825,000 into a want and not a need. So from my perspective, I'm going to vote no because I think this is the wrong time.
anyone else?
So,
Matt?
I'd say using that principle there, Bill, I mean, I could come up with a list of 100 amenities in the community that are wants instead of needs. I'm not gonna throw all those away just because of unfortunate circumstances. The program and the plan that's in place is something that's been worked on for many, many, many years. There's been many, many, many thoughts and conversations had with a number of people, and all the things that John just talked about were things that were discussed in a majority of those conversations. I support the project. I supported the project when we came up with the idea. I've supported the amendments that go along with it. And this piece is a huge part of the project. If we kick this can down the road, it is likely that we will never ever have an opportunity to be able to do it and have the portion of it that is covered from leveraged funds covered again. So I'm going to vote in favor of the project.
But with that same argument, we didn't have COVID-19 when you guys were going through this. And that's
Sure.
why I'm gonna vote against it.
Anybody else?
I'm gonna surprise all you and say no as well. I'm just worried about the money and the safety issues. Yeah, I totally hear what John's saying there, but I'm all for the downtown, you know, I'm all for the riverfront, but yeah, it's just, I think it's the timing's wrong.
Really? You talked a good talk, and then you did a 180 on
The
us.
opportunity
Well,
won't come up
obviously,
again.
I know.
Yeah, once it's gone, it's
It's gone.
gone.
I
You
know, when I
really
said
need
that,
to maybe rethink.
For a week, I was thinking about this, and I just.
So, I mean, as
Is it
somebody who works in,
responsible to
Give each
say-
other a chance here.
Sorry, is there, are we being responsible by saying yes to it? That's where I'm at, like, am I being responsible with the people of
I think we have a tough job. Part of it is prioritizing. And
right?
I'm a firm believer in you have to spend money to make money. And I also believe that if we decide not to do this, that we will regret it. And we may not regret it right now, but we will regret it.
Matt, you need to get closer to the microphone.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I had just text me, so get closer. as
I
can
agree.
hear you.
Everybody's nerves are raw. Everybody has anxiety, and I think probably the statement that I've said most in the last 2 years is you have to be comfortable with not knowing.
I don't
You
want
have
to
to be
use,
comfortable with not knowing.
I don't want to inflate an already terrible event by not upholding that. And I understand Jim's concerns. I really do. And so, but I think it would be a mistake not to continue with it.
Financially, are we gonna be?
Financially, we adjust projects in the future to be able to make up the difference.
Financially, you can make a situation work one way or another.
Yeah.
Now, my recommendation, and I had a recommendation not to do this, given our current situation, but I come in with a certain perspective. Hotel, motel, and local option sales tax, first and foremost, I mean, there's a huge chunk that's going into the general fund, covering operations at the golf course, covering operations at the recplex, covering capital equipment purchases for all of our departments, ambulance, fire, police, IT, park and rec, forestry, buses, all are getting paid for out of here. And I don't want to lose any of those, if at all possible. There are some other options that are in there. There's one trail project that I've told Eric I think probably isn't happening next year. But I don't know if one trail project is enough to overcome. But the problem is, I don't know where we
we're
are
at.
next year. I mean, Travis talks about, and he put it higher on local option sales tax for a loss than what I did. That part of it is gonna be I know that I can overcome a part of that $600,000 loss. 300,000 of it directly goes to the general fund. I can offset that with some maybe with some revenues that we're gonna get for transit, through, some of the COVID bills. But I don't know what my other income losses are gonna be in other areas. My suspicion is Recplex is gonna need more support this next year than what it was gonna be budgeted for, because I think we're gonna see tournaments smaller than what they otherwise would have been. Golf course, I think it's gonna be the same thing. You're gonna have the day-to-day people who are gonna golf, but some of your tournaments aren't gonna have the same numbers with them that otherwise would be. I mean, there's a lot of pressures that are gonna go on here. The hotel motel, this project, was fundable before, but losing $150,000 from 2 months of revenue, and you still have all the fixed expenses, I can show that I have an overall positive balance there next year, but there's portions of it that are committed. And when I take out the committed things, what we set aside for the auditorium, what we set aside specifically towards the riverfront, it's going to be in a deficit spot with this project. Can we overcome it? Yeah, but it's going to be probably some equipment that doesn't get bought. And personally, I prefer not to have capital equipment get pushed off to do projects that don't need to happen. It's hard to do when you're in the middle of projects to say all of a sudden we need to refocus ourselves. So in an ideal world, that's not the scenario we're at, but we'll make it happen one way or another. It's just you're going to make it harder decisions on things that are more priorities for day-to-day operations by doing this. It doesn't keep us from being able to move forward. It just means that we have harder decisions moving forward.
And we're gonna have a really hard conversation next year when we start talking about projects and start talking about future budgets, trying to make up those dollars. But again, they can be made up, which is why I'm okay moving down that path.
Well, I'm gonna go with what our city manager says, who generally, when we get together, we agree we have a darn good one, that's given us sound financial advice. I guess that's my feelings toward it. Like I said, I'm not voting, I'm gonna abstain. But if I was voting, it'd be pretty clear which way I'd go, so. Is there any further discussion?
Well, with you not voting, it's gonna be 2-2.
It's gonna be 2-2 probably.
Again,
I don't know why you walked
I'm
away.
just here to give you, I'm here to just try to walk through practical advice, but you all have to be satisfied with what you're doing. I mean, one way or another, you're putting yourselves down one road or another on this project and where it goes. So just understand the gravity of that. Again, if you do it, we'll figure out another way to make things balance next year. But this is one of the ones that I recommend. It to me makes about as much sense as anything else because it doesn't have to happen.
Okay.
The downtown will still be okay. And we'll still have our river cruises if they come.
I mean, it's a $4 million investment that's not gonna take place. I mean, that's the part that I think we put a lot of emphasis on, so. All right,
So any other thoughts or concerns? Chris, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. No, I think you've done well. I no other concerns. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay. Anything else from the council?
Yeah, this is the hardest thing that I've said no to. I'm all about the downtown. I'm all about the riverfront. I just don't want to. I don't want to hurt us with them financially. I'm trying to use good words here. I don't want to hurt us financially, and I might regret not doing it, but I don't want to regret doing it and then digging in the couch cushion for milk money, so to speak. I don't want to be scrounging for change to pay the rest of our bills or to make things happen. Because I want it, but do I need it? That's kind of where I'm at. And I feel you, man. You put a lot of time and effort into this, so it's like, I don't know.
that's why you got elected.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Don't be sorry.
Let's call a vote. Kathleen, please.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Abstain.
Kreitzer,
No.
Graham Murray,
Most definitely, yes.
Mopin.
No.
So what's that, where's that leave us at, Jim?
Well, it leaves us turning down a lot of grant money,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it leaves us a little bit closer on making some solutions work for next year between lost and hotel motel tax.
Okay.
Nick will have to work through what we're doing with the engineers, and how the DOT agreement itself isn't as much of an issue because it has general concepts that are written in here, and we can do improvements without doing what's listed there, but we do have to come up with a game plan for how we at the last minute make an adjustment on that. It can be done, it's just gonna,
Well, I think you have a pretty compelling story. You know, unfortunately, we can't be the only community that's going through this with the COVID-19.
well, and
But I
it,
realize that they don't necessarily figure that in.
another piece that we have on here, and we can talk with, well, I need to talk too with Eric, I guess. The 300,000 that we got from Great Places, we had 100,000 match on that. Can that be covered by federal funds, or can that be through the Tiger funds? That's one that we can check on between now and, or over the next few days, because that might be able to be reallocated to where we're not putting 100,000 into that over the next couple of years too.
Jim, there's been a conversation at the federal level about indemnifying municipalities and counties, and states for losses of revenues. If that were to happen in any reasonable time, is this something that can come back on the table and be readjusted for?
You're not gonna redo this. Once, the
it's
scope,
gone,
yeah,
it's
the
gone.
scope of Tiger makes it to where it changes it. A lot of our match on this, we're doing with Tiger. I mean, we could do a portion of it with Tiger, but there was a portion we just could not legally do by
Right.
how DNR looked at the wording on it. They wouldn't let us use federal funds as a match. So we had to put a piece in, but if we did this separately later, the whole cost of it would be on us. Well, beside, it'd be more like
The whole
2.5
$4 million.
2.5.
Yeah.
$1.5 million of grant funds and about 2.5 of ours.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I hate turning down grant money.
I,
Just did.
I know we just did,
You
well,
just did.
but it is what it is.
this is
You
very
can't
much
afford it, can't afford it.
an amenity, and, I mean, again, we would have made it work.
That's
It
the
puts more,
part that-
and it just puts, it is still within the area where when you're going through uncertainties and you have to make cuts, it's the least important thing for ongoing operations and for making our infrastructure work.
Right.
All right, moving on to number 5, resolution approving the urban deer management program.
Second.
Chris, are you there?
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm here. I'm
Okay.
here. Yeah,
Chief, one second, we'll let Chief, hang on 1 second. Chief, come on in. All right, once he gets to the podium so he can hear you, then Chris, you can go ahead with your questions. All right, go ahead, please.
Should I go? Okay. Chris Repke, 2228 Madison Avenue. I'm not opposed to this. As an example, I planted 2 trees last year, $75 each. They were not deer friendly. You know, deer don't like to eat them. But Mr. Buck decided to rub his antlers on them. I'm not sure if they're going to survive. So, $150. But I do have a concern in 2 things. This one thing is, as I remember reading, there's like 300 deer permits. Is these going to be kind of allocated across the town? Because you don't want to take like 100 deer from the south side of town and 10 from the north. And the other question I had, just because I know this is archery, is crossbows allowed? I have a bad shoulder that wouldn't be able to pull a bow. So I was just wondering if crossbows were allowed as part of this. Just a question to ask. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll address the 300 deer permits. That's a maximum amount of deer permits for this zone. This deer management zone encompasses city property, the entirety of the city of Burlington. Now, with that being said, there's requirements for people having to stay back 100 feet from their lot lines or from buildings, and there's requirements for that. So a lot of the properties here in town will not qualify to meet that expectation. So it is for the entire zone, not just for one area like the south side of town or the north side of town. It is for the entire zone, if that answers your question, Chris.
Yeah, have you ever thought about this though? I know it's for the whole zone, but because you want to have a reasonable number taken from each area, from the north and south, Have you thought about saying, you know, okay, in this area of the zone, we've hit this many deer, now we need to get it on the other side? It's just a question, just so it's appropriate, so you know, because the problem's across the whole town, not just the south side or just the north side.
Yeah, the depredation biologist for the Iowa DNR that's in our area, Greg Harris, I talked to him about deer management, and he looks at it overall for his zone, his area in the greater southeast Iowa that he covers and the deer population. And he can probably answer your question about deer migration. You know, even though you think they may be south side deer, those deer do migrate and move to the north side or move in and out of town. And he even, when I was talking to him about it, he says deer have become accustomed to moving into the city limits during deer season. They just grow up that way and become acclimated to the deer push when they're hunting outside of the city limits and move into property they know they're not pushed in as far as being hunted in. So that does happen, Chris, throughout town. So you may get a hold of him and talk to him, to Greg Harris and with the Iowa DNR, and talk to him about those concerns. But for this small of a management zone, he looks at the greater picture of, like I said, the greater southeast Iowa when he talks about the deer population in and of itself. Deer will go where they're not
Being hunted.
Yeah, where they're not being hunted, and also where they can forage and survive. They'll move to that open space or that area when it becomes available, for lack of a better term.
Okay, thank you. Oh, the crossbow.
The crossbow, Iowa does not allow for crossbow hunting in general. They do make exceptions for people that are handicapped or can show handicap to hunt with crossbows. So that would go through the Iowa Department of Natural Resources to get a permit to hunt with a crossbow throughout the state of Iowa, and that would include these deer management zones. So you'd have to follow the Iowa DNR guidelines, not our guidelines for the resolution that's going on right now.
All right, thank you.
This isn't for you, Chief, for Eric. Someone called me and said someone was putting corn out in Crapo Park for deer. So if you happen to have the parks check on that and see, that sure doesn't help our cause. Yeah, okay.
I think it came up in our conversations, and Ryan says that he tries not to let it happen, and when he does see someone doing that, he asks
Okay.
them not to. So
Cool.
we try to keep that from happening.
I almost hit one in town the other night, so, I hate to see it, but it needs to be done. Any other questions for the chief on that before he gets out of here? On the deers? Okay.
See you, Chief.
Thanks, chief. Can we get a vote, Kathleen?
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Fair Murray,
Aye.
Moffett.
Yes.
Okay, now we're at the end of our meeting, so we'll entertain any other thoughts or concerns from the audience. Chris, I think you're the only one on there, or someone can still call in.
Yes, I'm the only one. I did Chris Repke, 2228 Madison Avenue. Just two things. I think this worked well for this with the muting and that. I only lost hearing you one time when the guy was speaking on the bond. I didn't get any voice coming through the phone. Otherwise, everything worked really well, and so I appreciate this with the city doing this, and with this process, I give a big applaud for it. It's worked in general very well. The other thing is, I'd like to see the city consider, I think it's 657A. I mean, Mr. Rinker, he called and I asked him about that. I'd like to see, that's about abandoned houses and citizens helping with that process. Now is not the time to talk about it. It's been a long, tiresome meeting. But I'd like to talk to somebody about that who knows a little bit more, and maybe making, there's concern about staff time and city money, maybe making some of the citizens who can start this process kick in a little money, kind of as a public-private partnership, just so abandoned houses, vacant houses don't become a drain on our city neighborhoods. Thank you.
Okay. Jim?
Just with that, we had asked the city attorney what his thoughts were on implementing into our code sections this process, and his recommendation was not to. And that, being that was over a month ago, and it was well over my head. Part of it had to do just the liability in an area that's untested in law. If you go and take actual formal action where we're taking on a liability in a privately directed as opposed to for public purposes, he wanted, his recommendation was to wait until there was some case law out there that's been litigated over this and not be the test case on it. We do, though, have a request from Chris in regards to the specific property that he's of concern with, and we've sent that on to our city attorney, and there is a portion of that process that we can go through, and we will go through it as where the attorney says is appropriate. And again, I just kind of read this quickly this afternoon. There is a piece of that we can go through and see if we see evidence of a public nuisance, but there's only so far through the process we can go with how we're set up. There is a piece that we will do to follow up with Chris's concerns specifically with that property, and we'll keep him in the loop as to what we can and can't do with where our code currently is.
Okay. Let's go around the horn. Eric, do you have anything else to add? Don?
No.
All right. Nick?
We have started some street work through the contract with W.O. Miller up in the North Hill neighborhood. You've probably seen some signs. Maybe you've received some phone calls. I know I've received some about parking and some concerns there. We talked with our construction inspector, and then also he's talking to the contractor on making it a little bit more clear on what the parking restrictions would be. They're not working on every single road all at the same time, so they're going to put some different time frames on there based on how they're moving. As I drove through there, it seems to be moving pretty quickly. Now they have some patching to do, but they should be laying asphalt here pretty quick, like in that area. So, just wanted to bring that to note. If you have concerns, we've heard them and we've tried to contact them as much as we can. So.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you.
So you may have noticed that the Burlington Junction Short Line has raised their tracks up to 21 foot.
Considerably, yeah.
Is the most important part from their perspective over on the north side where our flood wall crossing will happen. That has caused the track to be raised all throughout that corridor moving north. Most notably the High Street crossing. That looked like they were working today on putting the pads back in. I don't know the duration of what that will take, but there's some work left there, especially on the east side of that approach. There's a big drop off between where that track height will be and where we'll need to bring the approach up to. So there's some things that'll need to be worked through. As it's flooding, it probably will take a little longer to get that done.
Do you know what the plan is further north of Big Muddy's area?
As far
as that crossing there? Because I saw they were looking at that.
I know they were looking at it, and I think in their eyes, I don't know that they see it as a legitimate crossing. I don't know what relationship the previous tenant had with Burlington Short Line on that sidewalk crossing. I know I've talked to Eric about the trail, what looks like a trail crossing further to the north.
Actually, I'm talking about in Riverfront Park. There's that little short
Sidewalk there.
Well, it's a crossing over the asphalt road.
He's talking
The road.
For the marina, right?
For the marina and the boat club, yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Drive down the road.
I'll get with you later on it.
Oh, there's a road crossing further, just north of the bridge?
Yeah.
I guess I don't know.
Okay.
In my opinion, they will need to address that.
Okay. I will say that they were down cleaning up all the loose rock that they
Yeah, I
sprayed,
saw that on Monday.
which was good. I mean, I'm not sure where we're at on Riverfront Park because there was a lot of rock on that side where we just seeded too, but I imagine they'll address that, so.
I hope so.
Okay. Steph, do you have anything? Kathleen, anything? Rich? Rich, good job on all this technical stuff. Jim? Do you have anything to add?
A couple of things. One, we do continue to make adjustments to what's open, what's closed as time goes on. We did extend parking in the downtown area. We're not enforcing the 3 hours. We're still enforcing the handicap stalls. And that's through, I think we did that through the end of April to match the, some of the recommendations that have come through the state. We have also, with the mayor's signature, gone through the process of saying that we've been allowing one extra bag of garbage with your pickup beyond what you're subscribed to without needing to have a tag. That can be a bag or up to a 33-gallon container that is done without a tag. As Mayor, as you were talking about that, your concern was just as the extra number of people that are at home, that it changes the dynamics for what people were expecting for how much garbage would be created at home at a time where we've got all kinds of recommendations for limiting the amount of trips that we take out.
All right.
So we are trying to do something as an offset to everything else. Hopefully that is of some benefit. It does come into cost to the city, but it's one that we can absorb without throwing any budgets into turmoil. And I think that's really kind of it. We're just trying to adjust as time goes on to the different pieces, and I think, Mayor, you may have some things that you still wanted to address with that.
Yeah, I will get there. Let's see. Council, Bill, you have anything?
I'm good.
Linda?
Yeah, I just want to send a very special shout out to a very special person. My mother-in-law, Mary Fran Murray, is in the hospice house in West Burlington. And thank you to all the volunteers that made these masks. I mean, they have adorable masks there. So thank you to everybody in their support for COVID-19.
Thank you, Linda. Rob?
The Seabirds sent out an email. They were talking about wanting to do a parade. Yeah, I don't know that we can do that right now, but they said they could use a little hope. So I just wanted to shout out to the Siebert family. And just remember, if you're a teacher and you're involved in the community, we can still socially network with the kids. My kids got on Facebook Messenger and they can actually do a kids messenger. So like the Van Zoon kids and my kids were talking. You can still do phone calls and emails, and I know that the kids as teachers have tried to contact students. So if you're watching this, or if you hear and your kids haven't been in touch with their teacher yet, get a hold of the teacher, and I'm sure they'd be happy to hear from them. So I wanted to keep that going. And then the other thing I just want to talk about was the social distancing. Yesterday I went by Angular and I saw the park at the bottom of the hill was just packed with people. They were all playing basketball, they were playing soccer or whatever. The shelter house was full. So be mindful that if you live in an apartment complex and one person gets sick, that's probably going to spread through there. And anybody that goes grocery shopping is now exposing an entire store. And this thing just multiplies. It exponentially grows as people come in contact with it. So you may be healthy enough to overcome it, but your chances are someone's going to bump into it that hasn't built up that kind of immunity or has is healthy enough to fight it off. So we haven't been ordered to have a shelter in place by the governor yet, but I don't know that we're taking this seriously enough. So it's a big deal, and I just want to urge people to limit their trips and stay at home when you can. Don't take the whole family. If you're all in the car, one of you can just go in. If you all got to go together, but we don't need everybody in the store at once. I know Walmart's limiting their number. Hy-Vee's got arrows on the floor and they're trying to do one-way traffic up and down the aisles. And they put up shield guards, opening up every other lane at the checkouts instead of having you packed in there. So, I mean, if everybody's taking it seriously but you need to get on board.
Matt?
I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to echo a little bit of what Robert said today in our emergency management. Jim, did you want to say something else?
I was just
So, go ahead.
Linda, you're trying to work something out for meals. What is that you're trying to get accomplished?
Yes, we're trying to get group of volunteers together for senior meals. So if anybody, I know a lot of you are still working and working out of your home, but we're looking for volunteers tomorrow. We need probably 10 that have pickup trucks or vans to go to Aldi's and pick up food in bulk that's been ordered. We'll take it back to the senior center, which has agreed to allow them to assemble these non-perishable meals there for the seniors. And then probably at 1:30, a group of 10, and we'll use social distancing to make sure everyone stays as safe as possible. We'll assemble these meals, and then we'll distribute them out to the seniors. So my phone is out of power right now. Otherwise, I was going to read the message, but get a hold of me or get a hold of Pam Taylor at Milestones for more details if you can help us out with that project.
Linda, what time do you need the trucks?
10 right now,
10.
10 at Aldi's tomorrow, and then taking the food back to the senior center and then assembling the food baskets at 1:30.
Okay. All right.
Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Jim, for bringing that up. I was going to echo what Rob said. Today, the Emergency Management Commission met, which is the mayors of the Des Moines County and the supervisors, and we are going to make a proclamation recommendation where we support the governor and her efforts, and also support her statement today, the further closures, and to act like we have a shelter in place, a shelter at home in place. And so that will be coming, but please, I heard a lot of comments over the weekend. We've heard about the parks, we've heard about house parties. This next 2 weeks is crucial. That's what we're being told by the Iowa Department of Health. That's what our governor said. So for this next 2 weeks, be respectful. Leave the shopping periods that the grocery stores and other stores have set up for seniors. Try to limit your contact. Please leave your kids home when you go shopping. Adhere to the 1 cart, 1 buggy rule. Wash your hands frequently. Cover your nose or mouth when you're coughing or sneezing. Disinfect the hard surfaces you come into contact with. All those things that you've heard time and time again. This next few weeks is crucial for Burlington and Des Moines County. It's here. And so we need to, as citizens, band together, make that decision. I know we all have spring fever and we're suffering from isolationism, but we need to band together and decide to stay home when we're not working, or stay home unless we have to go on a run for essentials. And thank you to everybody who are working in our community, providing the essential services that we need, keeping our economy going. We appreciate you, but if once that's done, sink into the couch, talk to your family, and stay home. There's no reason if you're bored to go out looking around or browsing right now, unless it's from a car. So that will be coming out. All the mayors are going to sign off on that, and the supervisors, and we're asking the citizens of Des Moines County, specifically the citizens of Burlington, we're the largest share, to act like there's a shelter at home issue in place, and more importantly, show how Iowans treat things like this, and not some of our neighboring states who have a shelter at home issue, and people are out doing whatever they do. So that's all I have.
So if anybody out there is a gamer, I decided to fire up the Xbox and I've been playing Modern Warfare. My screen name is Sack O Quarters. You can find me on Xbox Live.
All right, I think that's it. We'll end on sack of quarters. Oh, sorry.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, we need a motion to
Second.
adjourn. Kathleen, please. Sack of quarters.
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Fisher,
Hi.
Emery,
Yes, please.
All right, we're adjourned. Oh,
Yes.
sorry, Bill. We are adjourned. I didn't see you out of the corner of my eye. Sack of quarters 3.